All right, good afternoon, Team Ivy. Welcome to the final installment of the Intersections of Diversity, Equity, and Belonging in the Wake of COVID-19. This weekly Lunch and Learn series was scheduled on each Tuesday in the month of June to build understanding of the different experiences of our students, employees, and our communities during the COVID-19 pandemic and offer ways to build a better sense of belonging at Ivy Tech Community College. The response from this weekly diversity series has been extremely positive, and we've decided to continue the series through July as well. An email will follow soon to all of our staff and all of our students with July's session information. Additionally, it will be available on our website at www.ivytech.edu/diversity, where you can register for each session. While we are working remotely and priorities have shifted, how has mentorship, networking, and just being an employee, how has that been impacted by COVID-19? So today we're engaging to learn tips to ensure that we all can stay connected with our networks, with our professional work, and how do we sustain relationships from afar. Today, we're going to hear from our very own Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Caroline Dowd-Higgins is the Vice President of Career Coaching and Employer Connections for the Ivy Tech Community College System, where she is leading and implementing a transformative career development and workforce movement for students and employees on all 18 campuses in Indiana. Previously, Dowd-Higgins stood up a career and professional development venture at the Indiana University Alumni Association, serving IU alumni across the world with career and executive coaching and organizational development training. I could go on and on and on about Caroline. She is tremendous. She has a TEDx Woman Talk about reframing failure and defining success on your own terms, available on YouTube. She has books. She is a world-renowned public speaker and executive coach. Ivy Tech is extremely lucky to have Caroline. So I won't go any further with that, and you'll hear from her yourself. Just a couple of quick housekeeping before we begin. Everyone is on mute for the duration of the session. If you have a question for our speaker, please type it in the chat, and I will attempt to get to as many as I can during the session. I will be monitoring the chat, so please don't wait until the end for your question. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel for additional viewing and on our diversity website. So without further ado, I want to welcome Caroline. How are you?
Hey, Denisha, I'm really well. Thanks for having me today. I'm excited to talk about this with you and our colleagues statewide. Such a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. All right, so we'll just get straight into the questions. All right, now is it just me, or are we just working more at home? I go from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, sitting at my dining table. And then when work is supposed to be over, I stay at my dining table and do even more work. What tips do you have on keeping work and home?
I totally relate to this. I call it Zoom Palooza. It has just been a little crazy these past 12 weeks. And I was looking at my calendar. It's incredible to think that we've been experiencing shelter in place in a variety of different ways. We're starting to emerge back into the workspaces, but 12 weeks, that's a long time. And I don't know if all of our colleagues felt the same thing. I think some of us probably relate to this, that there was an urgency that happened at the beginning and the onset of COVID. You know, we need to prove that we can do what we do at home. And while I get that, and I honor that, you know, it was a new normal, I think we need to exhale and now think about how can we create a really healthy work from home environment? Because it looks like the foreseeable future is going to be a hybrid. You know, it'll be a little bit at home and a little bit at work, and we're going to have to stagger. And I think we need to really look at this new normal in a way that we can navigate it in a healthy way. So I have some tips if you're game. I'd love to kind of talk about broadly what that might look like.
Please.
So I call this Remote Work 101. And I know a lot of these tips are common and you may have heard them before, but it's so important that we honor a schedule. Just because we're working at our dining room table or our kitchen table, and I actually have a home office in my house, doesn't mean that you can throw the schedule out the window. Part of it is for continuity and helping our brain know, okay, when am I at work, even though it's literally in the spare bedroom or at the dining room table, and when am I unplugged? I also think it's helpful to create a designated workspace. And it's okay if it's the kitchen table, but just make sure when you have meals with your family at that kitchen table that you get rid of the laptop and you get rid of the pile, right? And you really honor the difference between your workspace and your life space. And I'll tell you, I'm a work in progress. I talk about these things, but I'm still struggling through them. So I'm going to be really vulnerable and honest and tell you that these are things that challenge me. And the next one is eating lunch away from my desk. I see some nods out there. You know, our beloved IT folks would probably be furious with me that I've got crumbs in my keyboard, right? And in the beginning of COVID, gosh, we were just scheduling meetings all the time, right? They were early in the morning before 8 o'clock. They were later in the day. They were during the noon hour. And every now and again, that's okay. But we need to honor some kind of a lunch break where we get away and refuel. Now, another thing that has become really clear to me over these past 12 weeks is that we need to rest our eyes from screen time. I wear contact lenses, and I don't have the benefit of glasses that might shield myself from that blue light that happens on the screen. But it can be really detrimental sitting in front of a screen for 8+ hours a day. So taking a little walk, going outside if the weather is nice, giving your eyes a chance to rest from that screen time is so important. The studies have told us that it can lead to headaches or even migraines and a lot of stress in your upper body when you're looking at that screen all day long. So I like to have stretch breaks. And, you know, if those of you that are with me on a Zoom meeting, sometimes I'll turn that video camera off and I'll just stretch, and you all don't need to see that, right? So I'll turn my video off, but it's just a way to kind of stretch and change my posture and really think about how I can honor my body. Something that we've all heard is that sitting is the new smoking, right? That's kind of something that has been around for a while in the lexicon of good health. Well, we've really got to be careful of that when we're working at home. You know, back in the office, you might have commuted, even if it was 2 or 3 minutes to go to a focus room or go to another building or go down the hall. We don't always have that luxury. And I'll wrap it up with this for this particular question, and then we can keep the conversation and honor what people are thinking. We need to set boundaries, and this is hard. As a coach, I will tell all of us, and I include myself in this, we need to teach people how to treat us by how we behave. So if we are available for those late night calls and those early morning calls all the time, we've set a boundary that says, I'm always available. And I know we often struggle with that, right? How to say no, but it's really important for us to protect those boundaries and show that leadership behavior that says it's okay to step away and take a break.
I love that. And speaking of all of that, Zoom has taken over our lives, both professionally and personally.
Yeah.
Even my kids, my 4-year-old and my 6-year-old have Zoom meetings for school. My daughter just turned 6 a couple weeks ago, and we had a Zoom birthday for her because we couldn't have her friends over. So Zoom is everywhere. How do we best own this new virtual world of Zoom for our own benefit?
Yeah, would that we all bought stock in Zoom right before COVID, right? Their business is flying high, and good for them. And it's really kind of neat to see how the technology has evolved. But Zoom's become a verb. I guess it was always a verb, but you know, we're using the brand name as a verb. So, you know, this is something that really resonates with me as a coach, because I have an extroverted personality. I'm energized by people. I'm very verbal. That's not good or bad. That's just how I'm wired. But it's really made me cognizant of the fact that everybody's different. Even another extrovert isn't exactly like me. And I really want to honor those of us that are more introverted and more internally processing. And I would encourage us to set a meeting agenda so we can honor that need for process time. And so people can come to the table, the Zoom table, prepared. Not everybody is comfortable speaking on the fly. Not everybody is comfortable being put on the spot or having to be extemporaneous. And there's an added layer, I don't know if any of you feel this way, but of vulnerability, right? We're on camera. And a really good friend of mine who is also in the coaching space wrote a fascinating article that I'll have to actually share with everybody about, do I leave my camera on or do I leave it off? And I've met with a lot of external Ivy Tech constituents who said, gotta have the camera on, right? We wanna see each other, it's a way to connect. And I don't disagree with that. But my friend's article made me really think sensitively to those who feel very uncomfortable with their camera on. So I'm trying to reframe that and be more open-minded. If someone has their camera off, it doesn't necessarily mean, hey, I don't want to see you. It might mean that they need that quiet time, not having to focus on the camera to really get the most out of that meeting. So I'll tell you, I've done a real flip there because I used to think we've got to have our cameras on. And I'm trying to reframe and really be open-minded to know that that's not everybody's comfort zone and that's okay. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or thoughts on that, but that was a real pivot for me during COVID to really think differently about how we can honor different ways of thinking in how we communicate via Zoom.
It's so hard to be on all the time. So camera on, hair and makeup ready on, you know, all of that when we're dealing with a new reality, right? We have dogs barking in the background. We have kids. My kids come and sit on my lap, you know, when I'm trying to work and being on Zoom. And at first, you know, when we first started working from home, I was very adamant about my kids not coming in the room. I was setting all of these boundaries for my family when I realized there's no point in doing that, right? That's my family. That's who I have to live with, right? I need to set boundaries for the rest of you, right? So if I need to turn my camera off, if I need to take a break and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for my kids,
you should do it.
I have to do it.
Yep.
Right? That's, to me, that's most important right now. So we have two comments. Jill says, I agree with the camera off allowance. I had a class full of introverts and I actually got way more participation with the cameras off and in the chat than I did with them in the classroom. Awesome. And I believe it's pronounced Isla. I have a camera on so much, I had not noticed how hard it was on my eyes until my new glasses came in on Friday. And that have screen help for my eyes. Yes.
That's awesome. You know, thank you for both of those comments. And I'll have to tell you, for me, the silver lining, right? I try to think about the cup half full and what I've learned a lot from the COVID experience. And, you know, we're still in it, is that we just have to be sensitive and we have to be aware, but there's been this sense of vulnerability, right? People are looking into our homes on Zoom, right? And like you said, the dogs are barking, the kids are coming, you know, someone's cutting the lawn and through the window. I mean, this is life. And I think in a way, it's brought us together. We're real, we're human, things happen. You know, I chuckled the other day because I was on Zoom with, again, another outside constituent from Ivy Tech, and they got up quickly because their kid came into the room and they were so embarrassed because they were sort of in anchor dress, you know, from the waist up. They were nicely dressed, but then they had sweatpants on the bottom. And I thought, good for you, you know, knock yourself out. It's okay. You don't need to apologize for that. This is real life in real time.
Exactly. So last week during our diversity series, we talked about mental health concerns in the wake of this new normal. How do we maintain our mental wellness with everything going around us, right? And
Yeah.
how do we stay focused on what's right in front of us, both professionally and then if you want to talk personally too?
Sure. I'm so glad that you asked that, Denisha, because it's an opportunity for us to be real, but to also give grace and space and permission for ourselves and our colleagues to know that these things happen, right? Like the pet and the kid interruptions or the doorbells or the tech snafus. I mean, how many times have weather, bumped us off the internet, things that we kind of take for granted when we're in the office. So I would tell you, we've really learned how to hone our resiliency, whether we've been conscious of that or not. And I want to encourage everybody to think about that, because those resilience and recovery skills are really part of emotional intelligence. And that's what makes all of us good colleagues and good leaders. And I firmly believe that we're all leaders, regardless of our rank, our salary, our title, right? It's a behavior. So I'm grateful that we've been able to hone those resiliency skills. But part of being in control of an uncontrollable situation, there's so much we don't have control over during COVID, is to think about your sense of humor, right? Have some fun during the day. I always talk about playtime, right? Maybe it's rolling around on the ground with my two dogs and, just having a good time, or going out for a walk, or doing something that is playful and light and brings happiness and a smile to my face. I've attended some virtual dance parties via Zoom. I've had happy hours and coffee breaks with friends and family. And it's nice to mix it up a little bit, just to think about having that control. But I'll tell you, one of the things that's a tiny little step that has really helped me, every now and again, I say to a colleague, can we just talk on the phone, right? I'm zoomed out. Would you mind if we just had a good old fashioned phone call? And it has surprised me how welcome that has been from so many people. We're burned out, and I think especially as the summer is here, we need to honor that time away, that vacation. That's part of our benefits package. So don't leave your PTO on the table. Take it and recharge.
Love that. Oh my goodness. I do have a question from an audience member.
Sure.
Well, it's kind of a comment, but I'd like for you to just think about it and ponder. So they say, I feel like almost all meetings these days are very task oriented, where a problem is being solved versus any type of brainstorming, creativity, critical thinking. Going back to what you said earlier about setting that agenda, or just getting out, and then I also said thinking about the task at hand, but how do we kind of open those doors up in this virtual world to not be so task focused?
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of pressure there, right? That we have to produce. And of course, we've always had to produce, but it's heightened here. And it just feels urgent in a very different way. And I would encourage us to think about how, if you are the person that creates that meeting, right? Or even if you're a participant, how we can consciously think about having some of that process time, some of that design or creative time. So it's not always just task driven. Are we using the right side of our brain and the left side of our brain in tandem, right? How do we think about that? I was on a really cool meeting the other day where we were brainstorming, right? And the leader of the meeting had a blank piece of paper up in a Word document, and they were literally scribing what everybody was saying. So it was kind of our virtual whiteboard, and it was really refreshing to be able to brainstorm and be creative in a Zoom meeting. And we even had some music playing, we were trying to set a tone that was very creative, and it was a welcome change, and we got a lot done. And eventually, we hit those tasks, but there was a designated part of that meeting which was creative, and I really appreciated that. So simply, I would say, insert yourself, be the leader that you are, and say, let's think about how we can make this meeting an opportunity to think creatively, to synthesize, to process. It doesn't always have to be task focused.
I love what Jillian just said in the chat. She said, my supervisor starts each weekly meeting with a show and tell, with something that we've been doing personally, a hobby, a meal we made, a book we read. I think that's a great way to just get the conversation flowing and not be always so work driven. Let's get to know each other. We're virtual, but we're still more connected than we've been before, I would say. I think that's a great kind of icebreaker to have.
I do too. And, quite candidly, the coach in me is always encouraging people to think about empathy, right? This is a very hard time. It's a stressful time. So much has been happening. Some of the stress is visible and tangible. And then there's an invisible stress that's out there that's eating away. Now, I don't want to be dark and dire. I have great hope that good things will happen, but the stress is real. And I think being empathetic to ask, how are you? Tell me about you, really matters. And I think people feel like someone's listening. So whether you're the person asking or you're receiving that question, those are really important.
Great point. So let's shift gears just a little bit. You have such an amazing background in professional development and leadership coaching. Can we talk about how do we stay connected with our networks and how do we foster new relationships in this virtual world?
Thank you for asking. I think it's so important because, again, in the beginning of COVID, right, let's rewind 12 weeks ago. I think everybody was in a panic, rightly so, trying to prove our value to say, hey, I can do this at home. Out of sight is not out of mind. And a lot of HR recruiting went on pause. Even Ivy Tech took a temporary pause because as an institution, we said, well, we can't onboard people because we're not in the buildings. And we've learned that actually we can. And business can proceed even virtually. And I think that was a great learning opportunity. So what I would say is there's an old adage that rings so true for me. You need to nurture your network always. And I use that word nurture very intentionally. Relationships require an investment of time and sincerity and authenticity. And it's so much better to nurture those consistently than to reach out and just ask for something when you need it. So I have some techniques that I would encourage us all to consider. Whether you're blissfully happy in your current role or you're looking for a growth opportunity, or you just want to nurture those in your network, reach out and check in with others. Maybe that phone call or that little nudge on LinkedIn or via email. And something that I share with my coaching clients, share a happy news update. It doesn't have to be, hey, I need this, or I'm looking for a new opportunity. It can be, something great happened and I want to share this with you, or my daughter's 6th birthday happened and we had the virtual Zoom birthday party, right? It can be something that's not so intense, but those happy news check-ins can be amazing. I say this not because I have any connection with LinkedIn, except I'm a big consumer of LinkedIn content and I do create a lot of content. It's quite an amazing platform. There are over 600 million members. That's a pretty darn good network when you think about that global community. So I would encourage all of us to think about how we can leverage those connections on LinkedIn. We all have this wonderful common denominator of Ivy Tech, and there are people in your extended LinkedIn network who may have worked at Ivy Tech at one point in their lives. So think about how you can grow your connections on LinkedIn. And I'm going to give you an insider tip about LinkedIn. There's a baked in algorithm in the program of Ivy Tech, of LinkedIn, that once you have 500 connections, you are more visible by other people. And it's brilliant because it encourages you to grow and expand your network. And the other pro tip is that when you comment on others' posts or you share someone's post, that causes engagement and it's an opportunity for other people to see you. So whether you're sharing or creating or curating content on LinkedIn, be active and think about how you can stimulate that algorithm so more people are seen and heard. Looks like we've got some really cool LinkedIn thoughts here. I'll defer to you, Denisha, about looking at the chat, but happy to talk about LinkedIn.
Sure. And yeah, so one thing I was going to say about LinkedIn is this is also a good time for us to even look at our own profiles and see, well, where do I need to update? You know, I started a new position, or I got an award, or I finished this major project. Those are great things to do right now as we're at home.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also a way to be seen and heard. And, you know, one reality in the COVID onset is that we were forced to work from home, right? We had shelter in place. And as I said, now we're starting to get back into this hybrid scenario. But one of the hazards of working from home is that you don't bump into someone in the break room or in the stairwell or in the elevator. So being seen and heard virtually takes an effort. And by virtue of connecting with LinkedIn and having your voice and your thoughts shared, even if you're commenting on someone else's content, is a way to be visible. I also think it's a great forum to ask for advice or help, right? Maybe you're looking to hone your leadership skills and you reach out to some folks whom you admire on LinkedIn, or even people that you don't know really well, but you're impressed with their career trajectory and you'd like to learn from them. It's a great place to ask for advice.
You mentioned, I know we're getting very detailed into LinkedIn, but I think this is a really good topic. You mentioned, you know, adding original and curated information on LinkedIn. What are some like different topics that, you know, just regular folks that we could add that we can curate for our own LinkedIns?
Yeah, so it's really interesting to troll LinkedIn and think about what you can glean, what you're interested in, right? There's so many topics that might resonate with you and everybody's different. So I would say focus on you and honor what you find compelling. Of course, we all hope and aspire to lift up the Ivy Tech message. There's some amazing things that are coming out of our marketing offices and also all of the campuses, and frankly, colleagues that are just sharing good news about Ivy Tech. So that's one way to promote the brand statewide. But, you know, maybe there are particular things that resonate with you that you want to share. You don't always have to write the content. You know, there's an opportunity to write a story. It's kind of like writing a blog, or you could share a meme, or you could share someone else's story. But it's also important to know that you can curate content. So maybe you were on a different website. You can share that. Maybe you were on Medium or on HuffPost or New York Times, and you found a really cool article. You can copy and share that link just like you would in any other social media and generate a conversation. So I think it's a good way to showcase what you're interested in. I want to add one other thing. Quite often when we think about relationship building, it feels like it's a one-way street, like we're asking for something. Can you help me? I need some advice, or I'm looking for a promotion or a new opportunity, for example. And I think this is a great chance for us to be helpful and to pay it forward to others. So part of your charge as someone who is stewarding relationships might be reaching out to people. How are you? How can I help you? I know in the beginning of COVID, it was scary, right? And there were so many colleagues and friends that I have around the country and even internationally, and just pinging them to say, how are you? Can I help in any way? We're in this together. So think about the opportunity, nurturing your network, just to reach out and say, how's it going? What can I do for you?
Maureen has posted in the chat, a silver lining is that I find myself getting more excited and interested in online conferences because there are so many free ones that we can access without travel expenses and time away from work. It's a good way to feel connected and expand our brains so that they don't get into a task-oriented rut. And she put in 2 different conferences that are coming up. So Arizona State University has a remote conference about teaching remotely, July 13th and 14th. And then the Indiana Black Expos Education Conference will be July 14th through the 16th. And we'll also have some Ivy Tech participants who will be doing some trainings during that conference. So that's going to be super exciting. Conferences, there's so many things out there. I am always on a webinar. I'm always looking at something because there's so much out there. What are your thoughts on that? How do we, yeah.
Yeah, you know, you're right. And as a speaker, my life has changed in my freelance world because I used to be speaking in front of live audiences, and not that an audience isn't live, right? But it's very different when you're using technology and you're focusing on a screen, right? Where typically you'd either be at a podium or you'd be walking around. So I really like to think as a presenter too, how do I engage the audience? And I think I'm drawn to things where there are breakout sessions and smaller conversations. I think none of us like to be spoken at, right? We want to be engaged and have a conversation. So those are important things to me. But I would say these big conferences that have all gone virtual for obvious reasons, I really try to pick and choose my breakout sessions and the sessions that I want to participate in. And I will always go back and look at those recordings. I might not be able to do them all in real time. And that's a bonus. You know, have you ever been to a big event and you think, oh, wow, these 2 events are happening simultaneously. I can't see them both. Well, now you can because you've got the recording. So that's a nice bonus. So all I would say is, yeah, be a great consumer of this online content, but take it in little bits, right? Give yourself that process time. Think about what you want and give yourself space to say, I can go back and listen to the recording. I don't have to absorb it all immediately.
You kind of talked about this just a little bit earlier, but as we're in this new world, how do we find our new voice, right? Things are different. How do we find our voice and how do we still make an impact in the world?
Yeah, I really believe strongly that all of us need to think about what is our value add in an organization. And it's not just about promotion or growth, that's part of it, but it's about how do we show others why we're valuable. So there's a question that I ask myself and that I would encourage all of you to consider. What do you want people to say about you when you're not in the room? It's a tough question, right? What do you want others to be talking about, right? What is Denisha's value? What is Caroline's value? What do they bring to the table when you're not there to advocate and represent yourself? And part of that is being clear to others about what your value is, what your interests are, what you're passionate about, but also making sure that your actions translate so people see what your value is by virtue of what you're doing. And that's a new challenge virtually because they might not see all the work that's happening in between the Zoom meetings. So I subscribe to a very old technique called managing up. And I think it's important for all of us with humble confidence to be able to share with our supervisors what we do well. And I've encouraged my direct reports not only to manage up to me, but I want to manage up their good work above to my boss. So he knows the amazing work that they're doing. And I think it's a bit of a culture shift for some of us, right? I don't want you to feel like you're bragging. It's about humble confidence, right? And really saying, this is the good work that I'm doing. And I believe there's a great opportunity there to generate a new culture.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I'm going to do something a little bit different now. I'm going to open it up for all of our participants. I've allowed you to unmute yourself if anyone wants to just jump in and join in on the conversation. We wanted this to be more informal, just for us to have a conversation. If anyone has any questions, any other tips, I've seen some great tips in the chat. But if you just want to speak up, please. And maybe I'll ask another question, Caroline. As you said, we're now staggering when we're coming in the office and, half at home, half at work. How do we maintain that camaraderie within our own teams at work? If I'm only here on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and I don't see the rest of my team, how do we maintain that camaraderie?
Yeah, so my team, I'm one of four in our systems office team for CCEC. We have a team meeting once a week where we're talking business and we're working through things that we're working on. But then we have a half an hour once a week that is really social. And it's just a wonderful catch up. And it's a chance for us to come together and not talk about work things very intentionally. Often we're eating lunch while we're doing that, but it's a really good chance for us to just be real and kick back and to get to know each other better, because we're relatively new in all of our roles. So we're still developing these relationships. And as someone shared in the chat, at the beginning of each meeting, that show and tell or having that informal conversation is important, because we get so structured in this world now that often we forget the personal part of nurturing our colleague relationships. So I would encourage you to carve out time to do that. It really matters.
And we also just get so caught up in all of the work that we have to do, right? There's so much work for us to do, even before COVID, right? There's so much for us to do. And now, for some reason, we think we have to solve all the world's problems in one day.
Can I speak to that? Because I'm really passionate about this. So sorry, I'm going to geek out for a minute. But, it's really interesting to me that, again, in the beginning of COVID, we were all home. It wasn't an option. It was a necessity. And we all became these massive multitaskers, right? We were Zooming and we were texting and we were emailing and we were throwing a load of laundry in and feeding a kid and walking a dog. And that was out of necessity. And I get it. There are times where we have to do that. But it's really hard for our brains to do all of that and do all of it well. So this takes a lot of patience and self-control. And I'm here to tell you that I'm not good at it yet, but boy, am I trying to think about how we can single task so we don't fall prey to trying to do it all the time. 12 weeks ago, we were running a marathon at a sprinter's pace, and that's just not sustainable, even for the very best runners. So we need to exhale now and say, okay, what is the pace that we can sustain? We need to work smart, but not so much that we're exhausted. True vulnerable statement, I'm a recovering workaholic, right? I was that person that literally worked around the clock. There's no excuse for that. I am now shifting to be a high achiever, and it's not about hours worked, it's about working well and also honoring that downtime. So I want all of us to think about, what do we need to work smart and not just work around the clock ineffectively? So that's a very vulnerable conversation. If anyone wants to go there, happy to chat about it, but it's a complicated issue.
And you also mentioned, at the beginning of all of this, we wanted to prove ourselves. We wanted to prove that I can do all of the things at home, no problem. Do you see that going away? I think we're still in that mind frame.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that. So what we're seeing globally is a shift toward embracing remote work. I've done a lot of research on this because I'm fascinated by this concept. And there was a Vodafone, which is a global communication company, study out a year and a half ago that said the most important thing that most professionals value is flexibility. Everybody values something different, and there's no judgment on values, but flexibility ranked very high around the world. And some companies embraced work from home. It was part of their norm, and others were really reticent. And it was encouraging to see Ivy Tech dive in to say, yes, within reason, we're going to honor work from home. And then COVID happened, and we proved as a global economy that we can do a lot of what we're doing at home. So now we're seeing some organizations say, you know what, if you can do it from home, stay at home. And there's talk about downsizing brick and mortar organizations for some companies, right? Not all, so not trying to scare anybody, but I think we're seeing a shift in the business model. So I'm hoping we can all, again, exhale and say, I've proven that I can do this at home. How do I do it in the most high functioning and healthy way so I feel great about my work and I show the value that I bring to the table at Ivy Tech?
And that's that balance that we're all still working to figure out. We want to work from home, right? We want to, at least some of us want to have that flexibility to be at home or to be at work. Some folks want to go back to the office full time, and we're all different, but we've been able to show that the work can still continue. It's just, how do we balance that in the right way? How do I honor myself and my own boundaries about turning off my camera when I need it to be off? How do I honor my own boundaries and ensuring that the things at home are getting done? I can keep work and I can keep home separate, right? Those are the things that we need to be focused on now that we're living in this new world.
One of the things that makes me happy about work from home, the fact that we all had to do it, there's no stigma, whether it was appropriate or not. There was often a stigma in organizations. I don't even know if this was applicable to Ivy Tech. I'm so new to Ivy Tech, I don't know about this. But in other organizations, the folks that worked from home often have this stigma of, wow, they're doing it at home and they're not working as hard as the people in the office. That wasn't true, but that was the story, right? So I think the beauty now is we're saying, no, we can do it from home and we're working at a high level and we're accomplishing great things and we've become adaptive and resilient. So I'm really pleased that that stigma is changing. So people who choose to work from home or want that hybrid can now do it with pride and self-confidence and not feel badly about working from home. So I think that's a positive thing.
For sure. We have a message in the chat. This has been a learning curve for me because I've always prided myself on being available for students and on keeping on top of education in my field. But trying to do it from home and be all I need to do from there is hard. I'm trying to set boundaries, but I am the worst breaker of them because it would be so simple to just get on Zoom and help the student as soon as I get that email. But I am beginning to see that it's unfair to family and to me for having time for other parts of my job and life. It is a work in progress. I cannot attend all meetings.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for your bravery and your courage to share that. That means a lot to me. And you're right. It feels very vulnerable. I'll tell you a similar story. About 10 years ago, I worked at the now Maurer School of Law at Indiana University. And law students are driven, they're passionate, and I was helping them forge their legal careers as they graduated and moved into the world. And law students, and this is a general broad brush example, but many law students literally have a 24-hour cycle, right? They're working late at night, they're up early in the morning, good, bad, or indifferent. So I'd look at my phone the next morning and see that I literally got emails from these students at 10, 11, midnight, early in the morning. And part of me thought, gosh, I should be there and respond to them. And then I stepped back and said, if I respond to that student at 1 o'clock in the morning, I've changed that boundary and said, it's okay to email me at 1 in the morning and I'm going to be available to you. So by very kindly setting the boundary to say, here's when I am available, we taught each other how to treat each other. I set a boundary and they understood. Now, are there emergencies? Yes. And are there special circumstances? Yes. I think we're all the type of professional that will accommodate that, but I can't stress enough how important it is to set those boundaries because we're also teaching our students, in this case, how to have good emotional intelligence and how to really think about their professional character. So it's tough. I'm with you 100%, but boundaries matter.
And I love what she said about that student aspect. I'm going to call someone out. Amber Williams Can you just talk in general about how you're staying connected with your students as a faculty member?
Yes, it is, man, it is so hard, especially because the students are having a hard time with technology. They're having a hard time. Um, and so when they might be like, okay, this is the only time I have internet, right?
Yeah.
At this moment, right? So you really have to think about, like, how can you help the student in the moment that they need, because we're also asking them to go through something that is not normal as well, and they might need help in a different way. I've had students having trouble getting access to books
Yep.
and their extra materials and things like this. um, One of the things that I've done is opened up Google Voice, and so Google Voice allows me to, they don't have my personal cell phone number, but it comes to my cell phone. And there really, a lot of my students respond better to text than they do email. And so during this time, what I can do with Google Voice is I can set it up to where I only receive it certain hours of the day. So they know then if I haven't responded, then it's probably shut off and I'll look at it the next day. And I just have to set that expectation up front. It's in your syllabus. You're talking to them on the first day, that, hey, I'll text you as soon as I'm able to text you. But sometimes it also helps because I can give them short answers that kind of satisfy them for a moment, and then I can get back to what I'm doing instead of having to, because sometimes they take up a lot of time at one time. So, this problem is really going to take 30 minutes to solve. But can I give them just a little nugget to help them do something on their own first? That is really important to help them learn how to be independent and seek out information on their own. So I could go ahead and get on my computer and take half an hour to solve this problem for them or connect them to this person. But at first, sometimes, if it's not the right time of day, then I'll say, here's the person's email. If they haven't responded to you by this time, then let me know. So then I've empowered them to email the person first. And then if it doesn't work, then I can connect the person. And so giving them little tips, little tidbits, if I cannot take the time right at that moment, really helps. And having the text to be able to do that, because that's the kind of world we live in right now. I can shoot a text, a one sentence thing, and they'll get it. They've got it, they understand, and they can run with it. And so that has really helped me, having that Google Voice option, being able to set it in the app to where I don't even receive a notification after a certain time and before a certain time. I can even set it in the middle of the day. If I know that my kid is napping from 2 to 4 and I just want to have peace during that time, I can set it up to have no notifications at that time if I want to. So that has been one way that has been working for me. So I hope that might help, someone.
Thank you so much, Amber. Having your perspective as a faculty member, working with students, just because we're at home doesn't mean the grind hasn't stopped, right? We still have to do the work. We still have to ensure that our students get all of the information that they need. I see Monique Dallas has her hand raised. You want to comment? You can unmute yourself.
That was by accident, but since I'm on the line, I'll just go ahead and comment that I experienced the same thing too with my students early on, because many of them was going through transition of like losing their jobs, transition from face-to-face class to online. So I felt like I had to be like not only an instructor, but like a parent in somewhat, to be there for them, to talk to them, to answer their questions, because I felt that they were very anxious and I wanted them to feel more comfortable knowing that I'm there so that way they can focus on their education. But I did realize that I was on my phone, my laptop, like almost 24/7, and that did interrupt my sleep and different cycles. But as time went on, I was able to adjust and then get everyone on a schedule to where they know when I'm available, and then they know when to send emails or go on my Zoom office hours, which I had throughout the week. And they could just pop in anytime and ask questions. I'm there, and that's the time I use to grade papers, work on my next week modules, and just be available. So I found that helped as time went on to be able to have them have a sense of like a momentum, like a rhythm. So I think getting the students into a rhythm is probably the best way to deal with that and get that momentum going so they have a flow. So that's what worked for me.
Thank you.
If I
Go
might,
ahead, Caroline.
I'm so glad that Monique and Amber shared those experiences. And, you know, I agree. It was an emergency scenario when COVID first happened and we were all sent home. And there's no doubt that there was 24/7, you know, around the clock. How do we help? I was really gratified that we as a college called each and every student, and I was honored to be part of the volunteer core of colleagues who called students from our Indianapolis campus. I think that really distinguishes Ivy Tech, that we do lead with how can we help you, and we're good listeners and we're compassionate. So well done to everybody who did that, right? And I loved Amber's idea of here's a little nugget via text to show you I'm here for you. And then we need to figure out on a regular basis, how do we honor each other and communicate in a way that serves us both. But just in wrapping that up to say, I get it. It was an emergency scenario in the beginning, and we all did what we had to do. And now we're trying to figure out how to get back into what the new normal looks like.
All right. Well,
One
Caroline,
thing I could add, could I,
yes.
Denise?
Go ahead. Go ahead,
I
Amber.
just wanted to say that I think it's been really encouraging to my students and my experiences for you to show them that you are a real person,
Yeah.
that you have a lot of stuff going on as well. So even during class, when I'm on Zoom, I will, you know, say, hey, my kids are in the background. Like they might, and I let them pop on every so often, just so they can feel comfortable to know that their crazy world is also my crazy world. And so if I don't answer, it might just be because, you know, I'm potty training and my kid has pooped his pants or whatever it might be, you know. It's just, the more real I think that you can be with your students, the better they can relate to this experience with you, and the more understanding they can be, right? That you can't be on all the time.
Yeah.
All right. Caroline, thank you so much for your time and your expertise that you've shared with our Ivy Tech community today. This information has been so invaluable as we have dissected the intersections of diversity, equity, and belonging in the wake of COVID-19. Attendees, if you would like to submit any questions, comments, concerns, or feedback, please email us at diversity@ivytech.edu. We value everyone's opinions, and your feedback will help us as we determine our next steps in programming. And speaking of which, please be on the lookout for July's diversity series around how we communicate with each other. The theme is Words Matter, reflecting a true sense of belonging with our communication. We'll be talking about different topics such as disability etiquette. What are the right things to say? Racial microaggressions, what does that even mean? And how do we ensure that we're not being microaggressors, right? Latino, Hispanic, Latinx. What are those three different words? How do I use them? Where did they all originate from? So those are just three different topics that we'll be talking about in July. Again, I'll be sending that information out by email. So look out for an email from diversity@ivytech.edu in the future. All right, thanks so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.
Bye-bye.